Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the live stream. I hope you're all very well this evening. Let me know in the comments section if you can hear me. So I just want to say a big hello to everyone. So the first we have here is Killer. Of course, Killer is always first on the live stream. Macs are better than PCs. Great to see you again. Ovidium. I know I'm mispronouncing that name, but welcome to the stream. Tom, welcome. Lenny, great to see you again. Drums to the bass, great to see you. Hope you're well. Magister, fine to see you. Hope you're doing well. Let's see. Then we also have Andy. Great to see you again, Andy. Philly D, hello. David Clay, great to see you again. Macs are better than PCs. Did I already say that? Mary Lena, great to see you. Paul McHugh, great to see you. In Ireland, we say Paul McHugh, but it should be Paul McHugh. Which do you prefer? Mark Iffy, great to see you. Adam, Pops, welcome. Barake, I know I'm mispronouncing that. Great to see you. And we have Marilyn again. And Medic, great to see you. Anno, Philly, great to see you all, great to see all of you. Mr. N. Burke, great to see you. Fax Trump Prejudice, great to see you on the stream once again. Vincent, welcome to the stream. Matt Lenhan, great to see you again. Angels, great to see you. Glasgow Kiss, great to see you once again. As always, you're a standard here. That's fantastic. Chris, great to see you. Matt, Nicholas, Philly, Sir Antonius Block, great to have you on again. Budo, Nabila, great to see you. Nicholas, Jerry, Wickham, sorry. Tom, Kenny, great to see you. Ian Clark, Bashiro, great to see you again. I haven't seen you for a while. I don't think you were on the last live stream. Temps, Shadow, Pauline, great to see you. Electronic Freak, great to see you. Shadow, Tara D, welcome. Yanror, welcome. Adrian Page, great to see you. Jonathan, wow, we're already up to 122. So hello to everyone who I haven't said hello to. Great to see you on the stream. Thanks for turning up tonight. I hope you're well. Double Guitars, great. Christian, great to see you. Felix, magnificent. Grim Reaper, fantastic name. 126 people in the stream already. That's fantastic. Thanks to you, Killer, and to Glasgow Kiss for your suggestions. So I hope everyone's very well. I hope you're doing very well under lockdown wherever you are in the world. So just to give you, as the usual, to give you an update here in Italy, from Monday, some of the rules here in Italy are going to change. Bonjour, Harry. We're going to start with more lenient social distancing. So mask wearing will no longer be required in public, but when you go into confined spaces such as buildings, such as stores or shops and the like, you will have to wear masks. But out in the open, it won't be necessary. I don't know if that's a good idea or not. I think wearing masks as much as possible, at least until we get the cases down to 0, would be preferable. But that's what the regional governors have decided. How's Italy? I think we had 73 cases, 73 deaths today. I might bring up the data later about how many cases we had, but we're constantly declining in deaths and new cases, so that's good news. There is a worry of a second wave, of course, so that's always going to be a problem. Now, I think probably we're going to not see a second wave for a while if it does arrive. Some people have suggested that a second wave may not be as bad as the first wave. Fingers crossed, of course. So I hope all of you are very well, and I hope you all saw the video where Boris Johnson was talking about the easing of the lockdown in the UK. So I'd like to know what your opinion is. I saw some of the comments about it, of course. I'm a bit concerned about the schools, because Boris had said that it's about getting kids back into school, get their education back up to speed. But I am concerned that it's more about just getting kids into school because there are no childcare services available. And of course, very worrying news. I was going to talk more about the lockdown in the UK, but this news has just broken just not that long ago about Donald Trump deciding to terminate the relationship with the WHO, the World Health Organization. So he was talking before about cutting funding from the US to the WHO. Now he's terminating the relationship, which is just ridiculous. Well, then Donald Trump is ridiculous. Thank you very much, Glasgow Kiss. Yes, if you'd like to hit me with a super chat, I'll put your comment your question as a priority. You can also send smaller donations by just saying you like the stream or you like the channel, or you can send a donation as well. Anything you can do would be greatly appreciated. But don't worry, no pressure, of course. No obligation. So let me just read some of your comments before we look at Boris Johnson's friends video. Artemis, great to see you again. Great to see you online on the stream. Hope you're very well. The CCP, not the WHO. Okay, but what is that? The Center for something. The CCP. He probably thinks the WHO is the band. Yes, guys, they had fantastic music in the 70s, but now they've gone really downhill. Their ratings are terrible. I'm not a supporter anymore. That would be Trump. Election year for the USA. Really, Trump should be careful. This is for his base. So he's sorry, Jeff Taylor has gone very very quiet, I assume. Yeah, I think this is. Thank you very much, Paul McHugh. A coffee, or is that wine in a cup? Thank you very much for that kind donation. I hope if you have any question, Paul, please stick it below in the comments section, and I'll respond to it. China run the WHO, the Chinese Communist Party. Well, China have decided to step in and support the WHO, but I think the idea that the US is pulling out, when you pull out, you lose influence. And the WHO has a huge amount of influence around the world. Like your channel. Thank you very much, Paul. Great to have you on the stream. Hope you enjoy it. Thanks again for that super chat. But money is influence, and Donald Trump cutting funding for the WHO means the US will have less influence in the world regarding health, of course. It's not just about this virus. The WHO do a huge number of great things around the world. They're involved in new vaccines, in research into new diseases, in controlling outbreaks. If the US don't want to be involved, then someone else will fill the vacuum, and China are filling the vacuum. Coffee wine is code for baby sham. To hell with you, killer. You're obsessed with this baby sham. It's not baby sham, it's spritz, okay? Ireland by 4 is contribution. Every country ups its contribution. Who needs the US? this isolationism by Trump is just damaging the US reputation around the world. And it's going to take a while for the US to regain its reputation. Look at the Paris Climate Agreement, look at the Iran deal. Other countries were deciding, look, if you're not going to get involved, we're going to get involved instead. And your role in the world is going to get smaller and smaller. In a similar way to the British Empire in the 20th century, how the British Empire, ruled the waves, the sun never set on the British Empire. And now if you look at the UK becoming a peripheral country on the edge of Europe. And I don't mean that in an offensive way, I just mean it in the reality of the situation. The US has surrendered the top leadership status, and I fear China will replace the US over the next decade. I agree. And I don't think that's a good idea. China is not a force for democracy in the world. They don't treat their own citizens with respect. And I'm very worried about this policy they have in China of social, I can't remember the exact term, but it's a type of rating service for citizens. Thank you very much, Tom. Thank you very much for that super chat. Someone called Doctor Who. Fantastic. Donald Trump the Darlak. He's as intelligent as a Darlak. Well, although maybe they were quite intelligent, I don't remember. But thank you very much for yes. The biggest gift in November to get the Orange Fool out, or as I call him, Agent Orange. I used to laugh at Trump because he was the other side of the Atlantic, but now I'm pulling my hair out. The world is getting suddenly too small. I agree. The impact he's having around the world is quite frightening, and we're all being impacted by it. Jonathan Adams says the UK is a laughingstock. I feel really bad about this. I feel sad how the UK has been reduced to, I don't call it a laughingstock, but as a peripheral country because of Brexit, because of the bad policies of generally Conservative Party leaders. Nissan's new model will be called Brexit. It will have only one forward gear and 5 reverse gears and go round in circles. Well said, who me. Thank you very much, Vincent. Smash the like button, peeps. Thank you so much. Yes, please smash that like button. You guys rock this evening. The true fact, Peter Capaldi was in film years ago. He was Doctor Who, but the film was cancelled as Who Doctor. A shell of its former self. Here, Max. Thank you very much, Mr. Spoon. Great to see you. So let's hear what as I call Agent Orange, let's hear what Agent Orange has to say, and then I'll come back with responding to some of your comments.
Several new measures to protect American security and prosperity. China's pattern of misconduct is well known. For decades, they've ripped off the United States like no one has ever done before. Hundreds of billions of dollars a year were lost dealing with China, especially over the years during the prior administration.
Does he ever miss an opportunity to blame Obama? It's like, yeah, we've lost so much because of Obama. Obama. He's obsessed with Obama. Obama hasn't been president for... Thank you very much for that that kind donation, Archesmed. Sorry. Hope you're on the stream tonight. I haven't seen you. Unless you're flying under another name. Thank you very much for that. But he's obsessed with Barack Obama. Well, Barack Obama hasn't been president since 2016. Was it? No, 2017 technically.
China raided our factories, offshored our jobs, gutted our industries, stole our intellectual property, and violated their commitments under the World Trade Organization. To make matters worse, they are considered a developing nation, getting all sorts of benefits that others, including the United States, are not entitled to. But I have never solely blamed China for this. They were able to get away with the theft like no one was able to get away with before because of...
Sorry, I just want to say thank you very much to John Hart. Thank you very much for that kind donation. I'm not sure what direction he's going here.
Past politicians and, frankly, past presidents. But unlike those who came before, my administration negotiated and fought for what was right. It's called fair and reciprocal treatment. China has also unlawfully claimed territory in the Pacific Ocean.
So this is somewhat true, yes. Thank you very much, Simon Carr. Donald Trump is the Homer Simpson of presidents. Well, yes. At least Homer didn't have fake hair. Bill Maher said that for a long time Trump will not leave office if the election is close and he loses, which he thinks is correct. I really do hope that Trump doesn't attempt to stay on. I think it would be a disaster. I think there would be riots. I think there would be serious civil unrest if he attempted to stay on. Doesn't Trump outsource a lot of stuff to China? Exactly, Artemis. Artemis, sorry. He donates. So he has a lot of. Well, his hats, for example, are produced in China. He has a relationship with China. It's just he knows that it's beneficial for his political campaign to regard China as the enemy. Grim Reaper, thank you so much for that kind donation. If you have a question, please stick it in the chat. I'll respond to it immediately. Thank you very much for that. But he sees China as a whipping boy. He sees it as something he can use to throw to the fan base, to his supporters. You know, blame China, blame China. China took your jobs. China took your industries. China is stealing from you. You know, he can't use the immigrants anymore. He seems to be, he's moved on to blaming China now. And this whole thing of the coronavirus in a way is helping him, unfortunately. We Scott's Dog says, congrats on reaching 25,000. Thank you very much. No, I don't think I've actually reached 25,000 subscribers yet, but I'm very, very close. Thank you very much for that.
Threatening freedom of navigation and international trade. And they broke their word to the world on ensuring the autonomy of Hong Kong. The United States wants an open and constructive relationship with China, but achieving that relationship requires us to vigorously defend our national interests. The Chinese government has continually violated its promises to us and so many other nations. These plain facts cannot be overlooked or swept aside.
Is this a declaration of war? Trump's ratings are going down. Trump's support is declining all the time. And 250 viewers. Sorry, thank you very much for that. Wow, 250 viewers. That's fantastic. I didn't check. Thank you. Thanks for pointing that out. Trump's support is declining. This is an election year, and he needs to roil up the base. He needs them to come out and vote, and he needs someone to blame. he has handled this crisis in the worst way possible. First of all, he denied it existed. Then he blamed the Democrats. Then he blamed China. Then he blamed everyone but himself. He's the one who is the buck ends with him. He's the one who's responsible. He has to take responsibility for this. It wasn't actually necessary for the US to go on into a lockdown. They could have followed Taiwan or South Korea in instigating sufficient testing and tracing. Now, there is this worry that South Korea is now implementing a lockdown, but they have avoided the worst of this virus.
The world is now suffering as a result of the malfeasance of the Chinese government. China's cover-up of the Wuhan virus allowed the disease to spread all over the world, instigating a global pandemic that has cost more than 100,000 American lives and over 1 million lives worldwide.
Okay, you're blaming the Chinese for this. But the virus, the outbreak took place in China. Okay. And we can have a discussion about what China has done and what China hasn't done. But you can't blame them for you not taking action. South Korea took action. Taiwan took action. They were able to contain it. They were able to deal with it. Iceland, okay, it's a small country, but it acted proactively. You ignored it. You said it was going to disappear. And now there are 100,000 dead Americans, and you're blaming someone else for it, even though you could have taken action to stop it, but you decided to let these people die. Adrian Page, thank you very much for that. Keep up the good work, Max. The Enlightenment is in peril. It is indeed. Thank you very much for that. We're entering a world, I think, a very tribalistic world, where you agree with your own people and you completely disagree with the other people on the other side. And there's no way that you would ever acknowledge the others as individuals. You would not, and you will defend your side to the death. I've talked about this before. You can see how, what's his name, Brendan O'Neill, for example, defending Dominic Cummings. Why? Because Dominic Cummings agrees with him on Brexit. He'll jump through hoops in order to defend Dominic Cummings, because they're on the same team. I'm not going to defend Jeremy Corbyn. I'm not going to defend Stephen Kinnock. Maybe I agree with them on certain politics, but I'm not going to defend Stephen Kinnock, for example, if he breaks the rules of the lockdown. He should resign, for example. So I had an argument with some people on the channel about that. This tribalism is extremely damaging to our society. It needs to end.
Chinese officials ignored their reporting obligations to the World Health Organization and pressured the World Health Organization to mislead the world when the virus was first discovered by Chinese authorities.
What evidence do you have to support that, Donald? That they pressured the World Health Organization to suppress information or to hide the virus?
Countless lives have been taken and profound economic hardship has been inflicted all around the globe. They strongly recommended against me doing the early ban from China, but I did it anyway and was proven to be 100% correct.
But you banned people coming from China, but not other parts of the world. This is just a facade. Oh, look, I banned people coming from this specific country, but not from people going from that country to other countries and then eventually arriving in the United States. It was just a facade. It was just something easy for him to do, to look like he was doing something. But at the end, you have the deaths of 100,000 people on your hands. Ciao Giorgio, welcome to the stream. You can't get away from this. This is his attempt to deflect, his attempt to say, I'm not responsible for this. China is responsible for all of these dead people. If every country had the same situation as you had, then perhaps we could have some sympathy for your position. But we can't have any sympathy for that position because you ignored this. There was a problem. Yes, there are serious questions for China to respond to. But that doesn't allow you to get off the hook.
China has total control over the World Health Organization.
BS. How does it have total control? Do you have any evidence to support this? Of course you don't.
Despite only paying $40 million per year.
Then how is that possible? How are they able to completely control it while at the same time only paying $40 million?
Compared to what the United States has been paying, which is approximately $450 million a year.
And we're supposed to believe that?
We have detailed the reforms that it must make and engage with them directly, but they have refused to act. Because they have failed to make the requested and greatly needed reforms.
The old saying, he who pays the piper calls the tune. So if you're paying $450 million, you're the one making the decisions. Now the problem is, the people who are working on behalf of the United States in the World Health Organization are unfortunately scientists. They're not politicians. So that's why Donald Trump is angry with this. This is why he is taking this financing away. Because the scientists are not telling the public, they're not following his line of thinking or his political agenda. That's why.
We will be today terminating our relationship with the World Health Organization and redirecting those funds to other worldwide and deserving urgent global public health needs.
I don't know can he actually do this? Does it not require an act of Congress? Is it not something that Congress decides? Is it really something that the president can... If somebody in the comment section knows this better than I do, please point it out, because I didn't know the president can do this. I assumed it was something that only Congress can decide.
The world needs answers from China on the virus. We must have transparency. Why?
This is just a facade. You don't care about transparency. When your government is avoiding transparency, you shouldn't really be calling for transparency in the WHO or in the Chinese response to it.
Why is it that China shut off infected people from Wuhan to all other parts of China? It went nowhere else. It didn't go to Beijing. It went nowhere else. But they allowed them to freely travel throughout the world, including Europe and the United States.
But if these people traveled from China into other parts of the world, it's the responsibility of the countries in the other parts of the world.
Death and destruction caused by this is incalculable. We must have answers, not only for us, but for the rest of the world. This pandemic has underscored the crucial importance of building up America's economic independence, reshoring our critical supply chains, and protecting America's scientific and technological advances.
This is just political speech. At the end of the day, if you're able to make it cheaper in China, you will do that. Look at your hats, for example.
For years, the government of China has conducted illicit espionage to steal.
We have never conducted illegal espionage. Just China has. Every country conducts espionage, Donald. Sorry that you're late to the show. Everyone does it. And probably the United States does it more than anyone else. Max, your sound system is... I can just hear a whining noise. Oh no! Is it you can just hear Trump or you can't hear me?
Our industrial secrets, of which there are many. Today, I will issue a proclamation to better secure our nation's vital university research and to suspend the entry of certain foreign nationals from China who we have identified as potential security risks.
Now, I don't know whether he's actually going to do this or whether this is just, red meat to the base. I'm going to block certain people from China coming into the United States. This could be a real policy, or it could be just an attempt to support, to maintain support with his knuckle-dragging supporters. But it's hard to tell because he's always lying. He's like Boris Johnson, the Donald Trump of the UK. But
I am also taking action to protect the integrity of America's financial system, by far the best in the world. I am instructing my presidential working group on financial markets to study the differing practices of Chinese companies listed on the U.S.
Okay, unfortunately, the video ended there, so... Okay, I don't know why there's an ad appearing now. Apologies. Okay. So what is he doing? He's attempting to maintain support with his base. His base are angry that the economy has collapsed pretty much, that many of them are out of jobs, that there is this virus spreading around the world, and it's spreading around the US. Many people are at home. They can't get out and work because of the lockdown. So who does he blame? He could take responsibility and say, well, we didn't deal with this situation correctly. There was a possibility to implement testing and sorry, I'm reading some of the comments. There was a possibility to implement testing and deal with this correctly.
Morning to you.
Sorry. But instead we decided, no, we want to ignore the problem and hope that it will eventually go away. But of course it didn't go away. Okay, I want to show you another video once again. It's it's one of these funny videos from Sky News. Let me just bring it up. So I'll get rid of this one. Somebody's enjoying that. Glasgow Kiss, thank you very much. When did the Muppets make the puppet? Are you talking about Donald Trump or Boris Johnson here? So we're going to go from one complete and utter Muppet to another complete and utter Muppet. I wonder if you can guess who it is before the video loads.
Mr. Hancock, a very good morning.
So
Mr.
let's
Hancock,
hear.
a very good morning.
So let's hear what the non-serial killer Matt Hancock has to say. Just let me, before we begin, let's look at some of your comments. The first MAGA hats were made and ordered in China. I have seen one of them with a made in China tag. And I completely agree. I completely understand that. It's an attempt to make America go away. It's an attempt to pretend that they care about American people. And in 2016, it worked. Oh my God, this interview made my blood boil. MP Hancock. Other US presidents have authorized missile and drone strikes, but when confronted with a nuclear-armed North Korea, he backed down. Kay Burley's voice, the nail on a blackboard. 1-1, welcome to the stream. Great to see you. Happy birthday, Glasgow Kiss. Yes, so it was Glasgow Kiss, our great moderator. It was Glasgow Kiss's birthday yesterday, so happy birthday to you. It's very late, I'm sorry, but Better late than never on the stream. So let's hear what Mr. Hancock had to say.
Morning to you. We both know the drill by now. Short questions, short answers. We'll get through as much as we can in the time allotted. Here we go. From 9 o'clock this morning, 2 hours' time, if I get a knock at the door from an NHS test and trace advisor saying, I've had contact with someone who tested positive for coronavirus, must I self-isolate?
Yes, it's really important that people who are contacted by the NHS Test and Trace service from, as you say, 9 o'clock this morning, if you are instructed to isolate, then it's very important that you isolate, yes.
Immediately?
Yes, immediately, because the reason is that you will...
No, I haven't seen this. So if somebody says you should isolate, can I call up my boss and say, I can't come to work today because I've been instructed by the NHS to isolate?
Been in close contact with somebody who's tested positive, and so you're at high risk.
What if I've got childcare issues?
Well, of course, it's very important that childcare is taken into account. You know, I understand that as well as
Okay, this is already going off the rails.
Anybody, and so yes, it's very important that people deal with childcare and do that in a reasonable way.
But I need to stay at home to and organise childcare issues, yeah?
That is what you will be instructed to do, yes, and you should follow those instructions because that's in the best interests of everybody.
So what are those instructions?
You understand why that might be an issue for some people?
I think, actually, the vast majority of people are going to follow what the NHS asks them to do in these circumstances because it's not only good for them, it's also good for their community, and it helps us all.
Sorry, Adrian says, what if my name is Dominic Cummins? Then you can do whatever the hell you like. You can go for a picnic if you like. You can go visit a castle if you like. You can go test your eyesight if you like.
To keep the R down. The whole point of this new system is to have a much more targeted approach so that we can hold the R down and trace those new cases and then break the train of transmission. And that, in turn, means that we can control the virus and we're safer.
I understand.
And at the same time, lift other elements of the lockdown.
But you understand that lots of people who are watching will think that it's one rule for them, one rule for us. Why should I do it if people like Dominic Cummings don't do it? So I suppose what you...
I can imagine in his mind is like, why are you bringing up Dominic Cummings again? I thought everyone got the memo. We're moving on from Dominic Cummings. Dominic Cummings is no longer the issue. It's done and dusted. Now let's move on to something else. Please stop talking about Dominic Cummings. I can't keep talking about Dominic Cummings. Please, please, please move on to something else.
You might have to do is make it mandatory. Is that something that you've considered?
Well, yes,
Thank you very much, Jan. If you have a question, please stick it in the chat. I'll attempt to respond to it. Thank you very much.
Have considered making this mandatory, and there are some other countries in which it's mandatory. But in the first instance, we have great faith that the public will follow the instructions from the NHS.
But the problem is not about following the instructions. The problem is if you have childcare issues, if you have children and you have to stay at home. They didn't talk about the question I had is if I'm instructed by the NHS to stay at home, is that enough of a reason for me to stay at home and I can just tell my boss I don't have to go to work today because the NHS told me to stay at home? I assume it is. It's like a doctor's note. Now, I don't know how long it's for. I imagine it's for 2 weeks. But what if I'm working in the gig economy? You know, if I'm delivering pizzas or if I'm driving an Uber or something. Well, an Uber's it's not going to happen, but you know, you're on your own there. But if I'm delivering pizzas or if I'm working in a call center or something like that, where I get paid per calls answered or something to that effect, will I get redundancy pay? Will I get that 80% that the Chancellor was talking about? But also the fact that if you have childcare issues, your guidelines don't cover that, don't mention anything about it.
And my early conversations, both before we launched it and since, is that the vast majority of people will do as they are asked to do by the NHS, in the same way that if your doctor said it's very important that you go home for 14 days.
Yeah, but the doctor won't say, and what you should do about childcare is X. The doctor said the childcare is nothing to do with me. That's your problem.
Then people would do that. It's that sort of conversation.
The complete disconnect from reality, because I don't know Matt Hancock if he has children, but I imagine if he does, he would have a private nanny come, or he would have some sort of facility in place that would allow him to put his children into that facility, and there would be no problem. He wouldn't even think twice about it. He wouldn't even have to think about it, really, because the system in Parliament or for a minister is completely different to that of ordinary people.
Yeah, but how do you make it mandatory?
Well, there are powers that we took through Parliament at the start of the crisis in the Coronavirus Act to be able to mandate this, but I'd far rather not...
Sorry, I must push you on that, if I may, Health Secretary. How can you possibly, if you go to someone's house and you say you've got to stay there, unless you're monitoring them 24/7, how will you know? How can you possibly enforce that?
Well, it is, of course, all these things are new and are a challenge.
So instead of saying we can't, you're just saying, well, it's new and we're going to put our trust in the public.
But it'd be far better if we didn't have to make it mandatory. So that's why one of the reasons that we've started with it on a voluntary basis. Well, I say voluntary.
So it's like, please stay at home. Please, pretty please. We're not going to check, but it would benefit everyone if you follow the rules, even though some of us don't follow the rules, like Dominic Cummings don't follow the rules. But I know Dominic Cummings broke the rules, but please don't break the rules like Dominic Cummings.
Voluntary, as in it's an instruction from the NHS, and it's very important that you do it, but it's legally not mandated.
Then why is it not legally mandated? Why?
At this stage, because we think it's far better, far better, if as a country we pull together and do this and everybody follows the instructions.
But why would you do that? It's like saying we would ask people to wear a seatbelt, but we're not going to make it mandatory. We're not going to fine people if they don't wear a seatbelt. So how many people will wear a seatbelt? It's like, or if I say we're not going to make it mandatory that people have car insurance. It's optional. If you want to have car insurance, it's your choice. We recommend having it, but if you don't have it, well, we're not going to force it upon you. How many people do you think would buy car insurance if it wasn't mandatory? Really?
Problem is, you've rushed it forward, haven't you? Because you want to take the headlines away from Dominic Cummings. So you brought it forward. It should have been 1st of June.
He's laughing like, yes, but I'm laughing because I have to pretend that, no, that's a joke. You're joking. Really? You think that's the reason? Of course you know it's the reason, but I'll pretend that it's not the reason.
And the app is being launched at the same time. Then with the app, what you could have done is if people go out, they have to have a GPS on their phone, and they get a call or whatever, a text every 6 or 7 hours like they do in Singapore, but you've had to rush it forward.
It's priceless, Kay. I'm normally accused of delaying these things and bringing them in too slowly. I committed to getting the system in mid-May.
You did.
You
No. You talked about the app in mid-May. Okay. You talked about the app in mid-May, didn't you, Health Secretary? And we've still not got that app. You said the app was absolutely essential to this track and trace. The app is still not ready until next week at the earliest, maybe after that, and yet you've brought this forward. I suppose many of my viewers will think it's not a laughing matter.
Yeah.
Oops.
Yes, well, I can't quite work out whether you're telling me that I've gone too slow or too fast. I think we've gone at just
I tell you what, I don't think my viewers know. I think they're as confused as I am. Clarify it for us.
Yeah. Well, we brought it in at just the right speed. And the crucial thing with the app is helpful. It's working on the Isle of Wight, but there's a reason that we haven't brought it in right at the start, which is...
Why is there this delay with everything? We're going to go into a lockdown, but we'll leave it to the very last minute. We'll leave it we'll leave it at the stage until it's almost useless. You know, we have mass infection. People can go to Cheltenham. People can go to pubs, and now we're going to bring in a lockdown. Now we're going then wait a couple of months almost. And now we're going to start testing and tracing people. Why is everything left till it's at a stage where it's almost pointless? You're talking about the same with the quarantine at the airports. We're going to bring in a quarantine when the numbers have declined. Why? Why are you doing it so late?
Why? Asking people to isolate, even if they're healthy, because the NHS has got in contact and informed them that they're at higher risk as they've been in contact.
Can you imagine if you had done this back in March? Imagine at the beginning of March you implemented this policy. How many more people would still be alive if you had implemented this policy? I think it's a good policy to test and to trace people. It's a good idea. But why is it done almost in June? We're almost into June now. Why has it been done now? Why wasn't it done back in March?
Contact with somebody who's tested positive. That is quite a big change. And one of the things we learnt in the pilot on the Isle of Wight is that getting people used to that idea is important to do before we then also add the technological...
So I'll just read some of the comments. Weescott's dog says, if they had done it too soon, then the cull wouldn't have been a success. Sorry to laugh, but you're probably right, yes. Smoking in pubs didn't take the same level of policing. Public health is weird. But I think it's a little bit different because it wasn't you're asking individuals to follow a rule. You're asking the pubs to follow a rule. So it is a little bit different to... it's not exactly the same here. But it is a good point about, in pubs, people decided not to smoke in pubs, which is fantastic. It was terrible before the smoking ban. But that was more a law for publicans, for owners of pubs, than actually individuals. Let's get the boosters open. Fake laughing for as long as it takes to drive to Ian Clark. Sorry. Because the Tories don't like to waste. Don't like wasting money. Yes. Imagine it. Imagine all the money that was used for Brexit. How much of that money that was used for Brexit could have actually been used for PPE, for example? Macs are better than PCs. Some dollars towards some blood pressure pills. Thank you very much, Max. Max, MSCS. Thank you very much for that super chat. Hit the like, folks. Calendars will be made especially for Artemis. She wants a mankini of James O'Brien. Yes, I'll try and use whatever contacts I have with James O'Brien to get him to do a calendar for Artemis.
Capability, the app on top.
Yeah, but you thought you could do that by mid-May. You haven't, and so you're having to delay it. But you're rushing in other parts of it rather than launching it all properly together, I suppose, is what my viewers might be shouting at the...
I think it's a bit of a sort of whack-a-mole game. We'll try this, doesn't work. Let's try something else, doesn't work. Let's try something else, doesn't work. There isn't a real plan. It's like throwing things at the wall and hoping something will stick. A disaster. And it's extremely dangerous because, once again, many people are dying in the meanwhile.
Screen this morning.
I doubt that many people will be shouting at the screen that I
I
have
bet they
rushed
are.
it and delayed it in one question. But anyway, I'll try to answer it best as I can. The pilot on the Isle of Wight showed that the best thing to do was to introduce the contact tracing, the human contact tracing, and then build on that once people have got used to the idea that when the NHS test and trace system...
What is this crap? get people used to the idea. There is a bloody virus. There is a pandemic. People don't need to get used to the idea. You need to be stricter. You need to implement, this is the way things are. We need to deal with this virus. We need to deal with, we need to have a lockdown. We need to test and trace people. That's the way it is. Like when you were implementing austerity back in the early 2000s, early 2010s, the teens, you didn't say, well, let's try this or let's try that. We need people to get used to austerity. No, you implemented. You didn't give a crap. You went full steam ahead. Why is it so? Was this pussyfooting around with, well, we don't want to be too authoritarian here. We want to take it easy. We don't want to frighten people.
Gets in contact. You've got to do quite a big thing, which is to isolate for 2 weeks. Now, the app adds value to this system because it can help to find contacts who you simply wouldn't be able to find any other way. So, you know, if you were on a bus, say, within 2 meters of somebody, you wouldn't know that you were within 2 meters. You wouldn't, you wouldn't know who they were. You wouldn't be able to contact them, but the app will help do that. So the app helps. As Baroness Harding, who's running the program, said, it puts the cherry on the cake. It isn't the cake. Okay,
I'm glad we're clear about that, I think. You have had coronavirus. Does that mean that you don't have to self-isolate?
No. The science says that there is...
Sorry, just stop for a second. Some of the comments. Budo K says, Max, do you have any updated news on how many of the tracers are call center staff called Karen? I think something like over 60 or 70% of the staff who are tracers are actually call center staff. They're not actually medical staff. This is something, of course, Boris Johnson's government hasn't talked about. He said, yeah, we're going to have tens of thousands of 20,000 tracers going out, contacting people. But of course, most of those are going to be people in call centers. Something outsourced to a private company, in fact. Not actually medical staff going and testing people. No, it's frozen. I have some problem with my software. Apologies, guys. Some problem with my software. Let me try again.
There is a likelihood that those of us who've had it have a lower risk, but we are not yet confident in that. And we're currently doing the research to find out if it's true that those of us who've had it can't transmit it. Because it's not only a matter of those of us who've had it not getting symptoms again. It's very important that we don't transmit it asymptomatically.
Sorry, the fucking hamsters. The hamsters are back on track again. I think the wheel came off slightly.
Okay, what also might be not very amusing for people is if they go on the line.
She's on fire here. I don't always agree with her, but she's really holding his feet to the fire.
London Tube or somewhere else where it's really busy, and then they get somebody at the door saying you're going to have to self-isolate because you've been in touch with, in close proximity within 2 meters of somebody who's had it. You do that for 2 weeks, you go back to work, you get another call. You do it for 2 weeks, you go back to work, you get another call. That could happen.
It could, and that is part of life. And
who's going to pay? Who's going to pay their wages when that happens? Are you asking employers to step in?
Yes.
What if they don't?
Well, of course, there's a legal system around that because you are legally equivalent to being off ill. So
I just read some of your comments. Amsterdam. the snow glow white on the mountain tonight. Not a footprint to be seen. A kingdom of isolation, and it looks like I'm the queen. I'm sorry, but this trace thing is ridiculous. People don't know their communities anymore. How can you trace people when you don't know who? Oops, I lost the comment. Artemis says, when you don't know who you've been tracking with, shops, transport pack. Yes, this is a huge problem, of course. And how do you, as she said, if you're on the tube, for example, so it needs to go it needs to go along with the lockdown. So your movements are restricted, and your contact with others are restricted, but at the same time there is a tracing in place. But what's happening now instead is you have the lockdown ending, and then the tracking and tracing is put in place instead, which is completely wrong. They have to go in unison. They have to go in parallel. You can't have it in stages. They have to be running together. A lockdown and tracking and tracing, or at least the tracking and tracing at the beginning, in order to limit the spread. If the numbers are low, then you can deal with that. But instead, what the UK has done is allowed infections, large numbers of infections, then implemented a lockdown, and now you're doing track and trace. The track and trace should be the first action, not the last action. Sorry about the hamster shenanigans.
And we brought that in right at the start.
There's a limit on sick pay, as we know. But would you make that mandatory as well?
Well, yes, the employment law covers this, and we changed the law a couple of months ago, so that if you are instructed by the NHS for public health reasons to stay at home, then that's the equivalent in employment law to being ill.
Okay.
And it's very important that employers are flexible around this.
How quickly are we...
Well, it's not that we will enforce it. The employers don't have a choice. That's the way it should be. If you'd like to read Max to read a comment or answer a question, the super chat is always available. Thank you very much for that super chat comment. Glasgow Kiss, thank you. Hancock will probably start crying at the next interview.
We're going to get these test results back. At the moment, it looks like it's several days. The Prime Minister said yesterday that he expects it to be 24 hours. He was pressed during the liaison committee for how long before that is the case. He says he's been forbidden to tell us. He can't make any more deadlines. He's the actual Prime Minister, but he can't tell us. Perhaps you can.
I can. 84% of the tests from the drive-through centres are returned within 24 hours. 95% of all tests are returned within 48 hours. Of course, there are examples of where the process hasn't worked, because this is now a massive process. And there are individual stray examples. We're working all the time to make it faster. I want to see every test returned within 24 hours from those drive-through centres. And we will do that just as quickly as we can. We've brought down the return time.
The Prime Minister didn't tell us that yesterday.
Well, what he did was he set me a goal of all tests from the drive-through centres being returned within 24 hours. So his job is to set the goals, and my job is to meet them.
OK, he said he can't set deadlines, but there we go. What did you make of his performance yesterday at the liaison committee?
Well, I think he was very clear and solid. And the crucial thing...
Are you sure?
Yeah. And the crucial thing is that we look forward to how we can take the next stages, the next steps, and take this country forward. And I think the large majority of what he was talking about was about that.
OK, a couple of questions before I let you go. I know we're almost out of time. Professor Whitty and Professor Vallance, we saw them arriving on Sunday, and we were told that they were going to do the news conference at number 10 Downing Street. Then they were in a little while. Then we heard from Mr Cummings in the Rose Garden, and then they left and somebody else did it. We haven't seen them since. When are we going to see them at the podium again?
Of course, you're not going to see them at the podium again anytime soon, because they have said too much. They are a problem. They are a problem for the narrative. Keep highlighting the horror max. Keep us sane. Thank you very much, Paolo. Thank you very much, Paolo Moss. I will try. Budoka, thank you very much for that super chat. If you have a question, I love the icon. Handpick was watching a different thing to me. My God, this wanker laughing. Thank you very much for the super chats.
Oh, well, I'm sure that they'll be at the podium soon. I mean, they've both played an absolutely incredible role in advising the...
Sure.
One of them, I haven't the video. I'd like to see if I can find the video. But there is a video of the chief medical officer talking to the public, and he was interrupted by Boris Johnson, and Boris Johnson basically told him to shut up and stop talking. Now, that's extremely worrying. You have the chief medical officer who's there to present scientific evidence, and he's interrupted by the Prime Minister and informed that he should be quiet.
No problem. Okay, great. Thanks for clearing that up. Forgive me, because there's been a lot of speculation about that in the press, but we've heard it from you. And of course, you are the Health Secretary and you've cleared that up. Thank you. What about what Penny Mordaunt and also Sajid Javid, two of your former colleagues, one still a colleague, one a former colleague, saying, one of them saying that it's time for Dominic Cummings to go, the other one saying that he should apologise. Why are they both wrong?
Well, I don't agree with them, obviously, on this. And what really matters, I think, is that we take forward the next stage of how the country can deal with coronavirus.
So let's just move on from what Dominic Cummings did, because we can't defend what he did. So we have to just move. I want people to move on. Forget about it. Okay, it's over. Let's just move on. He undermined public confidence. But if we forget about it, if we ignore it happened, then perhaps he didn't.
That's what the new NHS test and trace system is all about, having a more targeted version of being able to target who has to isolate rather than having these blanket rules across all of us, which are having the enormous impact that they are. Today, I have to formally review the rules on lockdown, and you'll be hearing later about the conclusions of that. We're doing everything we possibly can to get this country back on our feet, and that is the absolute focus of our attention.
You were giving me straight answers till we started talking about Dominic Cummings, and then we drift off again.
Well, it's about the future. It's about the future, Kay, and what we're doing to get this country out.
He got the memo, and the memo said, stop talking about Dominic Cummings. Don't mention Dominic Cummings. Talk about something else. Distract. Start talking about this app. Start talking about testing. Start talking about tracing. Anything but Dominic Cummings.
Hey, and every single one of my viewers is doing their bit. Yeah, it's doing their bit. Just to sum up, before we let you go, from today, you could get a knock at the door. You have to self-isolate for 14 days. You could go back to work. It could happen multiple times. It's voluntary for now. If you don't, it will become mandatory. We haven't decided when and how that might happen. The app that should go with this isn't quite ready yet, but it should be ready next week.
The app is ready. We're choosing to bring it in later, Kay. I mean,
Then if it's if it's ready, but you're choosing to implement it later, then it's the same as if it's not ready. It's irrelevant about its readiness is irrelevant if you're not using it. It's like, I haven't bought a Ferrari yet, but I'm going to act as if I have a Ferrari. No, you can't, because you don't have a fecking Ferrari. Sorry for my language. Stanley, thank you very much. Stanley Beckett. Excuse me. Has the government abandoned science? We're going to the next stage of relaxation, but not yet at alert level 3. Abandoned science? Maybe they never actually considered the science. I've talked about this before, how I think there's this conflict within number 10 of whether listening to the scientists are saying we need to do certain things. We need to maintain a lockdown. We shouldn't be easing this lockdown if the R number isn't low enough. isn't below, I think they said between 0.5 and 0.9. Now the problem is that our number is related to the number of tests being carried out and the number of new cases. But because there isn't sufficient testing going on, the R number may not be accurate. It's like trying to measure, a room with a measuring tape that doesn't have correct numbers on it. You can try, but you'll never really know whether you're doing it correctly or not. And the government are saying, let's go and build this house, even though our measuring tape is not accurate. I think they're taking a huge risk here. And unfortunately, when the scientists step forward to say, look, we need to do this or this or this, and it's bad for politics, it's bad for the government narrative, then they step in and they tell them to shut up.
We can go through this again and again.
That's why I was clarifying, just so...
Yeah, but
just,
other than that, what you said was broadly right, yeah. The key thing for everybody watching is, one, if you have symptoms, please go and get a test. And two...
How can you go and get a test if tests are not available?
If you test positive, and if the NHS then calls your contacts, if you get that contact from the NHS test and trace system, asked to isolate for 2 weeks, then it's very, very important that you do.
Is it possible for people to get a test? I don't know. There's always been a shortage of tests. People have said they've gone to, they've requested a test, and they were told instead to self-isolate without a test. Now, I don't know if the situation has changed. Now, I want to go on to what the Chancellor... Let me see if I can open this. No, why is it not working? Just bear with me a moment. The hamsters are still spinning. Okay. Before we go to this, I just want to read some more of your comments. Killer says a statement from the police. Maybe we can have a look at that. Let me just open the chat. It's taking some time to load. Okay, let's have a look at what the Chancellor has to say about the economic scenario, the economic situation. When you get a notification from an app that's not available to get a test, that doesn't matter. That doesn't exist. Yes. They will be better unemployed than sick. Tests are still difficult to obtain in England unless you go private. And how many people can go private if you don't, if you're on universal credit, can you go private and get a test? I think some of the tests cost about £30. So if you're on universal credit, it's very difficult for you to afford that. Today's shiny thing to distract from comments. Had one every day this week. Superdrug are selling antibody tests. Okay, so let's hear what the Chancellor had to say about the current situation.
Good evening. I'm joined here in Downing Street by Professor Steve Powis, Medical Director of NHS England. Let me begin tonight with the latest figures. 4,043,686 tests have been carried out in the UK, including 131,458 tests yesterday. 271,222 people.
Sorry, I just want to read some of your comments. It's like Oprah. You get a test, you get a test, you get a test. Are you like James O'Brien of LBC? Jamie asks. No. James O'Brien has a radio station. I don't have a radio station. Not yet. Perhaps in the future. Tests are only available for key workers. Yeah, this has been the point all along. The problem is, if you want to test, they ask you, are you a key worker? No, but I'm afraid I'm infected. I'm sorry, we're not going to give you a test because you're not a key worker. Now, this isn't just a problem in the UK, it's a problem in many countries. Now, I don't know how much you have to press to get a test. Maybe if you say, look, I'm really concerned that I'm infected, please give me a test. Now, if you can get tests from the pharmacy or from Superdrug, for example, then maybe it's possible to get tested. But it all seems to be very up in the air. Are these tests sold in pharmacies recognized? If you get if it comes back as positive, can you use that as a motivation to stay at home? Would your employer, pay your wages? He means that there is a James O'Brien in the chat. Oh, apologies. Is there a James O'Brien in the chat? Is James? Oh yes, James. I see James O'Brien here. Not the LBC one. Just born with the common name. For a moment there, I thought we were being watched by Big Brother.
Have tested positive, an increase of 2,095 cases since yesterday. Sadly, of those who tested positive for coronavirus across all settings, 38,161 people have now died.
38,000. This is like what happened in the United States with 100,000 people. Of course, in the United States, it's much more than 100,000 because it's not including... In the US, it's not including people who have died in the community or in care homes, or people who have died of pneumonia. Many cases which are not being regarded as... I think it was in the state of Florida. Every year, something like... I think it was for this month, for the month of May, between 200 and 300 people died per month of pneumonia. This month, 4,000 people died in the state of Florida from pneumonia. That's unusual. Lenahan donated $12. Thank you very much, Lenahan. Thank you very much for that kind donation. 38,000 should be taken with a spadeful of salt. Yeah, I think you can add at least another 20% to the 20% from the employers, 20% of actual deaths. Around 111,000 people died in World War I for the US. That's a shocking number, 111,000. So Trump is almost beating World War I. He probably will do within the next number of days. So let's hear what the Chancellor has to say.
That's an increase of 324 fatalities since yesterday. Our thoughts, as always, are with the family and friends of those who have lost their lives. Today's figures confirm what the Prime Minister has said. We are past the peak, we're flattening the curve. We protected the NHS and the number of deaths is falling. Over the coming weeks, we can now take careful but deliberate steps to reopen our economy. Across the country, office lights will be turned on and windows thrown open. Work clothes and school uniforms will be pulled out of the wardrobe. Shops and factories will start to hum with activity. As we enter this new phase, things will change. Businesses will need to become COVID secure to protect staff and customers. We will all need to stay alert as we go about our...
So just to give you some comment about this COVID protected, or businesses will need to protect against COVID. So here, for example, in Italy, when you enter a shop, there's normally a table on just outside the door or just inside the door where you have to apply hand sanitizer to your hands, or you have to wear gloves, and there's a sign saying you must wear a mask within the building. Now, I don't know if in the UK you will be requested to wear a mask when inside buildings, within shops, businesses, for example. And then also there is markings on the floors to show where social distancing must be applied. I don't know if that's the case in the UK, but you will probably see from Monday. Factories, do we still have factories? Andy Manning says. Yeah, well, maybe Nissan for now.
Our daily lives. And as Britain returns to work, we need to adapt the emergency programmes we put in place to bridge through the crisis. Because of those programmes, our economic prospects are better than they otherwise would have been.
Thank you very much, drums to the bass. Max, what's your opinion regarding COVID-19 next winter? The government may pursue a non-lockdown at the cost of lives and for the sake of the economy. A very good question. I think there's going to be a disaster in next winter. I hope it's not the case. I hope I'm completely wrong here. But a problem is that you will have a number of different things coming together. So you're going to have the problem of the regular flu. So many people are getting sick because of that, because of the cuts to the NHS that have taken place over the last 10 years. Hospitals are much less prepared to deal with the flu. So, for example, and I have to compliment Phil from A Different Bias for talking about this back in, I think it was just around the time of the election. He did a video on the problem of the flu and the NHS. So the NHS was pretty much inundated with flu cases. So older people, young children, because the winter was quite I don't remember, it was quite severe or it was quite mild, but there were a lot of cases, and the NHS was suffering at that stage, and also they were suffering from cases of a backlog. So people who had to be given vaccines and treatments. There was a huge amount of pressure on the NHS due to the previous cuts, for example, and the impact of the flu virus. And then what you're going to have is you're going to have this case, the second wave, or perhaps third or fourth wave of coronavirus. So you're going to have people going into hospital because of the flu, and you're going to have people going in because of coronavirus. And then you're also going to have a problem that not many people are talking about, which I think is this fear over vaccinations. A lot of people are afraid of vaccinations because of the rubbish you find on social media, and a lot of people are going to avoid getting vaccinated against the flu because of social media. And this is going to mean that more people are going to suffer the consequences of the flu, and you're going to see more deaths, and it's going to be mixed with the coronavirus. So I think it's not a perfect storm, but you're going to definitely see some chaos. Now, I hope, as I said before, I hope I'm wrong. I really do. But you have the NHS that has been undermined for 10 years. You have the regular winter flu, you have coronavirus, and you have anti-vaxxers, these idiots who are talking about Bill Gates putting microchips in vaccines and stuff like this.
We have provided tens of billions of pounds of tax cuts, tax deferrals, cash grants and discounted loans for businesses, income protection for millions of the self-employed, a strengthened safety net to protect millions of our most vulnerable people, and our job retention scheme has now supported more than 1 million jobs and over 1 million businesses. No British government, Labour or Conservative, has ever done anything like this. I believe it has made a real difference. But as we reopen the economy, there is broad consensus across the political and economic spectrum.
I actually commend, Captain Levins. Thank you very much for that super chat. NHS test and trace not involving NHS turns out. Yes, so this is a very important point. And I apologize, guys, because I forgot about it when Matt Hancock was talking. The NHS test and trace is not actually being carried out by the NHS. It's being carried out by a private company. The NHS is not involved with it. Some of Dominic Cummings' people are involved in it. Just think about that for a moment. Dominic Cummings' people are involved with this test and trace scheme. So is it about public health or is it about collecting data? But back to what the Chancellor is saying. I actually support the idea of giving people giving them support, financial support during this lockdown, during this difficult period. But it should stay forever. It shouldn't be eliminated in October, because a lot of people are not going to be able to re-enter the job market. Many companies will have closed. They haven't survived. Small businesses. Some companies have decided to lay off a lot of staff. They had an opportunity. Now is a good time to lay off staff, unfortunately, for the staff. But if you're running a business and you don't care about your staff, now is a good time to lay them off and not suffer any consequences.
The furlough scheme cannot continue indefinitely. 2 weeks ago, I outlined the principles of my approach.
Sorry, QA Library says, and thank you very much, QA Library is always on the ball. He says that they have not ruled out selling the data and vote leave using it. So this is, once again, Cambridge Analytica. They're using... Now, I don't know if this is true, so I'm just speculating. But are they going to use public data, the people handing over information to these private companies, believing it's part of the NHS, while in reality it's a private company collecting data and selling it to God knows who? Civil liberties being eroded, the government will make it mandatory, make it compulsory. Are you talking about the vaccine, or are you talking about the testing, the track and trace? Sorry. Heard that the race riot over cop killing someone. So yes, I want to get to that in a moment after this video. I'm not going to watch the entire video. We're not going to watch the entire video here, but I do want to cover what happened in the US as well.
The furlough scheme will remain open all the way until October. We will ask employers to start contributing as we also introduce flexible furloughing. And employees will see no change to their level of support.
I think that the system is, okay, there are a huge number of problems, but I think this is benefiting a lot of people at the moment. A lot of people are able to stay at home, but also to survive. But the problem, I think, is going to be when it ends. There's going to be a lot of misinformation. There's going to be a lot of, not just misinformation, but a lack of information about, okay, can I return to work? Can I receive my full salary again? How much, there has to be, it has to be clear that employers are not taking advantage of this. Will there be a mechanism in place to protect employees from employers who are abusing the system or attempting to abuse the system?
As promised, I can provide more details today. I believe it is right, in the final phase of this 8-month scheme, to ask employers to contribute alongside the taxpayer towards the wages of their staff. But I understand too that businesses and employers have been through an incredibly difficult time. So I have decided to ask employers to pay only a modest contribution, introduced slowly over the coming months. In June and July, the scheme will continue as before, with no employer contribution at all. In August, the taxpayer contribution to people's wages will stay at 80%. Employers will only be asked to pay national insurance and employer pension contributions, which for the average claim account for just 5% of total employment costs. By September, employers will have had the opportunity to make any necessary changes to their workplaces and business practices. Only then, in the final 2 months of this 8-month scheme, will we ask employers to start paying towards people's wages.
For example, here in Italy, a lot of companies have decided not to return to some sort of normality. They've encouraged their staff to remain at home. Now, this is due to social distancing issues. For example, if you think of a skyscraper, a large building with a huge number, sounding like Donald Trump now, with numerous floors, it's going to be very difficult to socially distancing, to maintain social distancing within a skyscraper if you have like 30 or 40 floors. So how do those businesses return to work? You're sharing 1 or 2 lifts or elevators. You're going to be mixing with thousands of people in a confined space. How do those businesses become COVID ready? It's okay if it's a small shop or a bar or a restaurant or a pub even, where they can allow social distancing to take place. But imagine an office block. Imagine tens of thousands of people working together in a single building. That's impossible.
In September, taxpayers will pay 70% of the furlough grant, with employers contributing 10%. In October, taxpayers will pay 60% and employers will contribute 20%. Then, after 8 months of this extraordinary intervention, of the government stepping in to help pay people's wages.
I need to sign off before Max covers the US situation, otherwise I'll go all caps ballistic. No, I understand, Night Raven.
The scheme will close. The biggest request I've heard from businesses, large and small, right across our country, is to have the flexibility to decide what is right for them. So, to protect jobs and help businesses decide how quickly to bring their workforce back, we are introducing a new, more flexible furlough. This is a critical part of our plan to kickstart the economy. The financial security of the furlough scheme has been a relief for many, but at the same time, people want to work. No one wants to be at home on furlough. No one wants to feel unable to contribute. So HMRC and the Treasury have worked hard to put the flexible furlough in place, not from August the 1st as originally planned, but from July the 1st.
Okay, so you're going to bring it forward. But it's not just that people want to get back to work because they want to contribute. Many people want to get back to work because they're afraid that their job would no longer exist the longer they stay out of employment or stay furloughed. But there's also the risk that many people are concerned about returning to work because maybe their employer isn't taking social distancing seriously, and maybe they fear that if they do raise concerns, they risk losing their job. I think it's very important that you protect these workers, but then unfortunately, this is the Conservative Party we're talking about. Do the Conservative Party care about workers? I leave that for you guys to decide.
1 month early. From July the 1st, employers will have the maximum possible flexibility to decide on the right arrangements for them and their furloughed staff. For instance, if you were watching at home and on furlough, your employer could bring you back 2 days a week. They would pay you for those 2 days as normal, while the furlough scheme would continue to cover you for the other 3 working days.
can this be abused? Will it be abused? Will the government make sure it's not being abused? I don't know if these are legitimate questions.
To allow us to introduce this new flexible furlough from July the 1st, we will need to close the old scheme to new entrants on June the 30th. Employers wanting to place new employees on the scheme will need to do this by June the 10th to allow them time to complete the minimum furlough period before then. Alongside the furlough scheme for employees, our economic response has also supported the self-employed. 2.3 million people have now applied for our income support scheme. I know people have been waiting to hear whether the scheme will be extended, and I understand people have been anxious. I can confirm today the self-employment income scheme will be extended with applications opening in August for a second and final grant. The final grant will work in the same way as the first did, paid out in a single instalment covering 3 months' worth of average monthly profits. To maintain the sense of fairness alongside the job retention scheme, the value of the final grant will be 70%, up to a total of £6,570. Otherwise, there will be no changes and no further extensions to the schemes, which continue to be some of the most generous in the world. Our economic response to coronavirus was designed to keep people in work, protect people's incomes, and support businesses.
I know I'm going over old ground again, but I still think the easiest solution here is a UBI. Give people the UBI, allow them to return to work when they feel comfortable about doing that. Allow them to return to work when they have worked it out with their employers. I don't. Is this attempt to bring the date forward because of pressure from businesses? Is it pressure from Tory donors? Who's putting the pressure on the government to bring the dates forward?
All to give us the best chance of recovering quickly as the economy reopens. These measures have been on a scale unmatched by any government in recent history. But I do want to acknowledge that we haven't been able to support everyone in the exact way they would want. I understand some people have felt frustrated, but you were not and have not been forgotten. Even if you don't qualify for the furlough or self-employment schemes, we've provided a wide range of support, from discounted loans to tax cuts, mortgage holidays, and enhanced welfare. Now, our thoughts, our energies, our resources must turn to looking forward, to planning for the recovery.
So I just want to see, just want to reply. Max has brought up the UBI reset the clock. I promise I won't go into UBI tonight. Stanley says track and trace being headed by Dido Harding, wife of Tory MP, and headed Talk with 150,000 customer accounts hacked. Feeling secure? Getting private companies to do track and tracing. I understand one response would be, well, they have the expertise, but you don't hand it over to a private company. You could maybe, if you want, involve a private company. You could ask Google to help you out with some of the software or the tools necessary, but you would make it very clear to Google or the private company, this data will not be shared with you. We will pay you for your services, and that's it. But instead, the government are handing this over lock, stock and barrel to a private company, and then, of course, the private company is handing maybe a large brown envelope to someone in number 10 to have this contract. No questions asked.
And we will need the dynamism of our whole economy as we fight our way back to prosperity.
So Killer says a very interesting thing. The pressure is Brexit. They need to kickstart the recovery before December. That's a very interesting point. If the economy is starting to pick up, things are doing well, then they say, look, we don't need an extension. So they're probably going to bet the house on some sort of recovery. So they're not going to ask for an extension in June, and they will just go ahead with the hope that the economy will recover. Now, the economy may recover somewhat, but it's going to take a while. It's not going to be immediate. A lot of people are still going to be out of work. A lot of companies are still going to suffer. For example, to give you a preview of coming events, here in Italy, you can see many businesses, in the hospitality industry, they're starting to recover somewhat, but because of social distancing, their takings are much lower than they normally would. So they're adjusting. They're doing quite well, I think, but it's much different in comparison to this month last year, especially as the weather is quite good at the moment here in Italy, and beaches would be full. Especially this time of the year, the schools are starting to get ready to close. People are booking holidays. Apartments would be completely booked out at this stage. Tourists would be starting to arrive, but it's not happening. We're starting just gradually to leave the lockdown, and there is a fear that we could see a second wave. And the regional governor here has said that if there's a sign of a second wave, he will immediately implement a lockdown. And he's very serious about this. And I believe he would. And then we're back into a lockdown again. And there is a risk that if the UK go too quickly, you're going to start to see new cases rise. And you're going to have to implement some sort of other measure. Now, whether they will ignore these new cases and just allow the virus to spread, I don't know.
Not everything will look the same as before. It won't be the case that we can simply put the key in the lock, open the door, and step into the world as it was in January. We will develop new measures to grow the economy, to back business, to boost skills, and to help people thrive in the new post-COVID world.
This is completely unrelated to this. It's just something that's popped into my head. They have thrown hundreds of billions of pounds at saving businesses, maintaining employment, and all of this. But if you were to ask the government 2 years ago, why can't we end homelessness? Why can't we end child poverty? They would say we can't afford it. It's too expensive. But here, and I'm not criticizing the money being spent, but when the government say we can't afford something, it's complete and utter bullshit. It's really what they mean is we don't want to spend the money. We'd prefer to spend it on something else. Now that they have to spend this money on coronavirus, they are throwing hundreds of billions of pounds, even trillions in some cases, in some countries. The US spent something like almost $10 trillion at this stage. How much of that, even 1% of that could have been used to end homelessness in the United States? I think it's something like $50 billion would end homelessness, would provide enough social housing for everyone who's homeless. But we can't afford that. That's too expensive. They can't homelessness and all the rest because they need the pressure for society. They just keep inflating, inflation rolling. The magic money tree is always bears food for war too. Exactly, Chris. Yeah, when there's, there was nobody ever asked the question when, and I'm going back to Tony Blair here. When Tony Blair says we need to go to war with I was going to say Donald Trump and then I was going to say Boris Johnson. Where's my mind tonight? With George W. Bush. Well, we need to go to war with George W. Bush. Nobody ever said, how much will it cost? Where are we going to find the money? Marie, thank you very Marie, sorry. Marie, thank you very much for that kind donation, that super chat. If you have a question, please throw it in the chat. I'll attempt to respond to it. Thank you very much for that. But once again, it's, if they want to spend money, they will. If they don't want, they'll say it's too expensive. Because the government can create money out of nothing. It's a number on a computer. They can invent it. Of course, it will have to be balanced at some stage in the future. Quebec says 41 students and staff tested positive for COVID-19 since the schools reopened. There we go. Yes, Nick Ferrari in the UK saying, we need to reopen the schools. We need to reopen the schools. Everything is safe. What else? Talk radio. Yeah, we need to reopen the schools. Children need to go back to school. There's zero chance of them getting infected. Once again, here we have, thank you very much, QA Library, 41 students tested positive since the schools reopened. Thanks, Marie. Do you have a comment, or a question or comment? Please do. I prioritize it. Thank you very much. Guys, don't be shy if you want to ask a question. Now, I think this dislike LBC. No, I don't dislike, if that's a question for me. I don't dislike LBC. Some good, some bad. James O'Brien, good. Eddie Mayer, good. There's also another guy who's quite good. I don't remember his name. A young guy. Nick Ferrari, not so good. Guy who likes to go on boats, not so good either. He will remain nameless for tonight. A French guy. So I want to. So today I uploaded a video about the situation in the United States, and I just want to switch gears for a moment and talk about this for a little bit. I promise towards the end, after this topic, we will end, of course, on a light note, as thanks to Killer and Glasgow Kiss normally send us. Sorry, I put the mute on this. Just a moment. Okay. So if you've been living under a rock, you didn't know that an African-American man was killed. Murdered, I don't know whether you want to say murdered or killed. Wealth depends on poverty. Well said, George. Wealth depends on poverty. We need poor people in order for rich people to exist. In an equal society, we wouldn't have billionaires and we wouldn't have homeless people. Unfortunately, we have decided that we need also trillionaires. So we're creating a society where we have more and more money concentrated in a small group of people, and you have the rest scraping for whatever crumbs may fall from the table. So thanks very much for that super chat, George. Okay, so this is a follow-up on the situation in Minneapolis, where George Floyd, an African American, was murdered. Yes, let's say it as it was. In the video I uploaded today, I actually made the video yesterday and then I uploaded it today. In the video, I didn't know that he had already been handcuffed, and thanks to people in the comments section, they had pointed out that George had actually been handcuffed at the time, which makes the situation even worse. Because I had said at the time, in the video, I said, handcuff him if he is a threat to you. I didn't believe he was a threat, but I said, look, if you really have to arrest him in this manner, handcuff him. But the video went on. The video I had uploaded ran for a few minutes. Now, of course, that wasn't the full length of the video. The video had probably gone on for about 5 minutes. Night Raven, thank you very much. Keep those hamsters rolling. The hamsters, I'll throw them some steroids that should give them a bit of a boost. Thank you so much for that. Once again, he was on the ground. He was handcuffed in this video. And the police officer had his knee on his neck. And eventually he died because of this. But this, once again, is about people given control, given a blank check on how to control the public. Let's see. So this is a response. This is a news report on the rioting that took place after that. Now, many people are complaining. Why are these people rioting? Why are they angry? They should show respect to local businesses. This is an issue that's always brought up by the media and by the right wing in particular. Look at these people, they're rioting. This isn't a legitimate form of protest. Let's take a step back for a moment. These people who are protesting, who are rioting, have nothing else. They have zero power. They don't have access to lawyers. They don't have access to the media. They don't have huge followings on social media or in the public sphere. They have no voice. They have nothing in some cases. They have no money. Many of them are not able to get a job, and their outlet is to attack buildings, attack businesses. Now, let me make a small caveat for a moment. If small private-owned businesses are getting damaged or getting destroyed here, this is not acceptable. But if you're attacking large corporations, these businesses are not going to suffer. Today I was watching a very, very good response from The Amazing Atheist. I do recommend you check it out. Where he said these people they're attacking these businesses, and the owners of these businesses are not going to suffer. It costs them nothing. And also, it's something that's important to remember is many of these large corporations, they have insurance against this type of problem. But let's see what the report has to say. Again, if I don't want anyone to be distressed by this footage, so I do recommend maybe just switching off from the stream for a moment, or putting it on mute, or watching something else but it is necessary to see this, because it is an example of how society treats one section of it in one way and another section of it in a different way.
Sounds like we have Pat Kessler on the phone now.
Pat, please don't hang up on us again.
Yes, this is a very difficult night for everybody in Minnesota, everybody in Minneapolis and St. Paul, as we watch these protests grow. I think one of the big questions, guys, is why isn't the city stepping in of Minneapolis and St. Paul? Why isn't the state stepping in to stop this violence, these fires, these conflagrations, these takeovers of the Minneapolis police precinct?
Max, did you see the CNN reporter getting arrested live? No, I didn't actually see that. No, if you can send a link in the, or if you can find the video, please post a link and I'll attempt. We can perhaps see it together.
It is a very big question. We know that the governor's office has sent 500 National Guard troops tonight to the Twin Cities to try to tamp down this violence, this looting, the fires. but we don't see them anywhere in the city. We also see tonight that President Trump has entered the fray. Just a few minutes ago, he tweeted that he cannot stand back and watch this happen, in his words, to a great American city. He's attributing it to the radical left mayor, in his words, Jacob Fry.
And of course, Trump always points the finger at someone else. Trump would never say, Glasgow says, I posted a pic at the rear of the situation, 3 officers on top of him. Let me see. But Trump, once again, blames everyone but himself. He has nothing. He's no blame here. He's the type of person who says, well, there's good people on both sides.
Let's set that aside for just a moment. Here's what's important here. He says that he has spoken to Governor Walz and told him that the military is available to come in and do it. But then the president says this, as any difficulty that happens from now on, he says the federal government will assume control. And he says this, when the looting starts, the shooting starts. So this is a...
Now this is in reference. This is compared to what I think it was a governor in 1967. There were riots in 1967, and this was in reference to one. I think it was the governor at the time saying we're going to shoot people who are looting or people who are protesting. Now there's a problem here that who do you define as a looter? Is it someone carrying something out of a store? That is a looter. Or is it somebody who's in the vicinity? Now, when the military arrive, the military are not there. The military are not the police. The police have a job to go and investigate, find out who is doing something, and arrest those people. The military don't have that type of jurisdiction. The military's job is to defend the country or defend, perhaps, if they're given the mandate to protect property. But they're not keepers of they're not in the sense like police officers. They don't arrest people. They don't decide who is a looter and who is not. So if you're asking them to shoot people, they're going to shoot people. They're not going to decide who to shoot and who not to shoot. They'll follow orders. So you don't want to have the military involved. Now, if you're using the National Guard as a protection for property or a protection for the police, that's a different scenario. But once again, nobody's asking why people are protesting, why people are looting, why people are burning down buildings. Why? Nobody's asking this. Everyone's asking, what can we do to stop it? Not, why is it happening in the first place?
A very strong reaction from the President of the United States in the midst of this really terrible event that's happening in Minneapolis and St. Paul tonight.
Well, Pat, let's break this down a little bit. I mean, who's making the call? Is the mayor listening to the fire chief saying, I'm afraid to go in? Is the police chief saying to the fire chief, I don't have enough guys to protect your fire equipment? I mean, at some point, someone has to take some responsibility, and I think that's why you see the president getting so worked up. And I think a lot of people watching this are going, where is law enforcement? Where is the fire department? But I know that these decisions aren't made in a vacuum. How does this leadership flow chart work in terms of who is doing or not doing things?
Well, this is the most important question of tonight. We have not heard from any of our city leadership, nor have we heard from Governor Walz about tamping down this violence.
Okay, I understand about dealing with the violence. Now, unfortunately, you can say this is fortunately. I see it maybe as unfortunately. This is going to end pretty soon. People will get tired and they will go back to their homes, and nothing will change. This will be, and I mean this in no disrespect, a flash in the pan. This poor man, George Floyd, will become a footnote in history. A protest for a period of time, and then people will go back to normal. And then what will happen again is another African American will be manhandled on the street, will be killed, and we're going to have another protest again. We're going to have more looting, and the cycle will continue, and nothing will be done about it. Global to exist, the National Guard should be shooting the police. They should. It wouldn't be the first time. They're no good cops. Flowchart, surely a Venn diagram. Leadership, there's no leadership in this case. Nobody wants to take control of this. No one wants to be responsible, because it means dealing with the problems of the police. Why do you have these issues in the United States but you don't have them in other countries? The training is completely wrong. The culture is completely wrong. There's no interaction with community. There's no community policing. You have this militarization of the police as well. And there is no respect. There's no respect between government and the public. The public don't trust government, and the government don't trust the public. Night Raven says the phrase was used by both Miami Police Chief Walter Headley in 1967 and by President and segregationalist George Wallace the following year. This, hard man approach. I'm going to shoot first and ask questions later. Miss Nomad says, did you see the reply on the video that I gave you? No, I'm sorry, I didn't see that. Apologies. George was a very large man, ex-football player. The police officer that worked with him as security at the for 4 years couldn't out alpha him on the security job. This wasn't about Floyd. There's a lot of this Ahmaud Arbery, etc., and other people, and people aren't getting money from the government to help with the effects of COVID-19. This is building up. Let's call this a rebellion, not a riot. The government are... Now, I don't know the current situation because it's I haven't seen any more information about it, but the last I heard, a lot of people were receiving... Well, a certain number of people received $1,200 to survive for a period of 2 months, to pay bills, to pay rent, or whatever. Now, I don't know if they have given another check to people who have been laid off. If not, you're going to see more problems like this. Once again, there's the old saying: if you take away something from someone and leave them with nothing to lose, then there's nothing more dangerous than someone who has nothing to lose. Let's see what else they have to say in this report.
Something I think that is very unusual in all of my years of reporting, that we have not seen our leaders come forward and say, this is what's happening, this is what we're going to do, particularly to stop this violence. So we don't know the answer to the question, Frank. We don't know why or who is not allowing the police to come in, the firefighters to come in, or the National Guard.
I don't know who else is it. I think anyone who has responsibility is washing their hands of the situation. Maybe they're deciding, let it just run its course. And then people will give up, they'll fragment, and then they'll go back to doing what they were doing before. Maybe working, being wage slaves, being good little citizens by watching TV and buying useless crap.
Say again that the National Guard has been ordered to these cities, but around the 3rd precinct, which is burning down, which is something I think that none of us has seen in our lifetime.
No.
Unprotected police department.
I don't have any sympathy for the police department here. I'm not going to encourage it, of course, but it's understandable. I have to be very careful. But it's understandable that people would go to the police station. It makes more sense to go to the police station and attack the police station than to attack, a 7-Eleven or a Target. Target was a name of a store. Makes more sense to go directly to the source, because that's where the problem starts. Although I think the problem starts much higher up than the police department. The training, the commissioner, the politicians, and the president at the end of the day. The president has to once again say, the buck arrives at my desk. It ends here. But of course, Donald Trump is the complete opposite of that. Everyone else is to blame. I have nothing to do with it. I've sent you in some comments some link to 2 different videos about the Brexit extension from a Brexiteer friend and your Jeff Taylor. Have you seen them? Seduction Asylum? No, I haven't seen them. Perhaps put them on the community page. If it's you can put it on any of the images on the community page, then it's easier for me to see because there are fewer comments there. Indeed, police station. What's going on here? What's burning? Why? So there. What's happening here is there was an African American man who was murdered by a police officer, and the community are not happy about it, and they have decided to avenge his death. And I think also avenge the deaths that have the African American community have suffered over the last number of years. Welcome to the 1950s and 1960s America, where cops were nothing more than thugs against blacks, gays, and anyone who refused to live as the Republican Party mandated. Max, this is going to escalate. It really feels like a cover-up now with these weak charges and the autopsy blaming Floyd for having health issues. So similar to what was his name? There was the other man who was selling cigarettes. He was selling illegal cigarettes, and he was killed in a chokehold. This other man. And of course the response is, oh well, he had health issues, or he was resisting arrest. I admit, and I'm being honest here, that I have fallen for that line as well. I said, why do you resist arrest? Why don't you just follow the instructions? But we see here someone who has followed the instructions, someone who is on the ground. What instructions? Eric Gardner, thank you very much, Kenny. Yes, Eric Gardner, Michael. Someone who's in this case, this man has followed the instructions, and he still dies. Like, what could he have done more to follow police advice? He was handcuffed. Like, once you're handed... Once again, I don't really understand this. I really don't understand. When I watch NCIS or some American TV cop show, you see the police officer grabs the person. Maybe this is all fake. Truly fake, so separated from reality. They grab the suspect, and handcuff them and put them back in the boot of a car, in the back of a car, or in the back of a van or whatever. You never see them holding them down on the ground for about 5 minutes. So where does this come from? Why are we seeing in the public one message, and we're seeing in popular media something completely different? it's been happening for a long time. The guy shot by the cop in his in his own house. The lady last week shot 8 times for no reason. Common denominator, they were black. The guy who was in his own home, and the police officer came in, thought she was in her home, and shot him, even though she was not in her home. She was in his home. You know, and this response of automatically I must shoot people. Here in Italy, the police, there is the carabinieri. They are the military police. They walk around with guns, also machine guns. But they don't shoot people. Their last resort is ever to shoot someone. I'm not picking on the American cops here, but it seems to be the first resort in many cases in the US is to shoot. Even on videos you see surrounding the car, guns ready. There's no attempt to de-escalate. I understand there's a risk that certain people will have weapons, but then this is a completely different scenario. Third-degree murder charge is type of murder where an individual acts with a depraved indifference to human life and results in the death. It is unique to a few states. It seems, yes, this is third-degree murder at least, Lenny. Paul says poor people in the US are shipped off to horrible prisons like Rikers Island in New York to wait for court. It's a disgrace. Arrested for nothing. A lot of time, no money for bail. This whole bail issue is another one that's was really interesting. It was enlightening for me when I saw it on John Oliver's show. He talked about this issue of bail, where people are arrested. It could be for mistaken identity, or it could be being in the wrong place at the wrong time. They're arrested, but because they don't have any money, they're not able to be released on bail in order to clear their names. Or in some cases, they're encouraged by the lawyer to say, look, we know you're innocent, but it's better to make a plea bargain, where you say, okay, I was guilty in order so that I can get out of prison, because you're kept in prison until the trial or something like it's. I don't remember all of the details, but it's a ridiculous situation where there are people who are actually innocent, but they claim they plead guilty in order to eventually be able to get out of prison, because if they don't, they go into a cycle where they have to wait until there is an eventual trial, which is just nuts. But Max, guns don't kill anyone. Third-degree murder, more riots. The medical examiner noted Floyd had underlying heart conditions, largely contributed to his death. Here we go again. But even if he had died of a heart attack, there's nothing to say. There's no reason for having his neck crushed by a police officer's knee. Will this cause the United States to, the poor of the United States to rebel? I don't know. I don't know if this is enough. You guys seem to believe that this is the beginning of something. Maybe it's my skepticism, my cynicism, I should say. I'm afraid that a lot of these things, when these riots begin, they tend to eventually die out, and then people go back to normal, unfortunately. TYT livestream title says the cop has been arrested. Let's see if we can find something about the cop being arrested, and then I can show it to you. Just bear with me a moment.
Right now, authorities in Minnesota say the police officer who knelt on George Floyd has been arrested. Welcome to CBS 2 News at 11 and stream it on CBS in Los Angeles. I'm DeMarco Morgan.
And I'm Suzanne Marquez. Within the past hour, authorities confirmed Derek Chauvin was taken into custody. This as law enforcement is trying to get a handle on the escalating violence in Minneapolis. CBS in LA anchor Jasmine Veal is live in our newsroom with details. Jasmine.
Well, Suzanne, the officer was arrested a short time ago, I can tell you, but we don't yet know what he's going to be charged with. Meanwhile,
so what will he be charged with? Will it be first-degree murder, second-degree murder, third-degree murder? Which will it be? Will it be manslaughter? I think there's also the worry of having a grand jury or what's going to happen. Because these things tend to escalate in the sense that people believe, okay, he's going to be arrested, he's going to be put on trial, we're going to see justice done, but at the end of the day, it goes in the opposite direction, and he's released without charge, or he's exonerated.
last night, protesters set fire to a police precinct. The National Guard sent out more than 500 soldiers to try to control the situation.
State police officers in riot gear, backed by the National Guard, moved in to secure the streets of Minneapolis as fires continued to burn in the morning hours. Last night, protesters set fire to the police station where the 4 officers involved in the arrest of George Floyd worked before they were fired. The mayor of Minneapolis ordered the building evacuated and defended his decision to let it burn.
The symbolism of a building cannot outweigh the importance of life, of our officers or the public. We could.
And well, I have to respect this. It's a building. Who the hell gives a crap if it burns? We're not going to defend this building. I think it would be extremely damaging if we saw soldiers and police arriving to defend the building from people who see themselves as victims because of the actions taken by the police officers who worked in that building. Pete says, you get this police abuse in the UK. I know someone who was a victim of this a number of years ago and ended up in hospital after the officer knelt on his lower back and gave him kidney problems. A kidney problem, sorry. It's people who have an inflated ego of themselves, who need to feel I'm the boss here. People have to keep quiet and listen to what I have to do. Not that I represent something. I represent an authority that has been given to me. All 4 cops were fired. Hats off to the mayor. He made the right call. Yeah, I agree. Trump has, of course, called him weak.
Could not risk serious injury to anyone.
It was one of many fires set in the city, including this building that partially collapsed. There has also been widespread looting. Corboy Bala had to fend off looters who tried to steal the safe from his sports bar.
You know what's interesting is that they focus, the media, and this is the problem as well, the media focus on the looting taking place to small businesses. Okay, it's important that they are, we hear about that, but they ignore the looting taking place towards big businesses who will just write off this as this loss. They'll be able to claim it on the insurance. They won't feel the impact of this.
It's not fair. It's not right. We've been working so hard for this place. This is not just for me, it's for my family.
Protesters want the 4 officers involved in the incident to be criminally charged with Floyd's death immediately.
This delay
seems like it's suggesting that you are going to try to sweep his death under the rug.
Minneapolis police say Derek Chauvin, the officer seen with his knee on Floyd's neck, has had 18 complaints against him in his career, but faced...
Why then was he... Why was he still employed? 18 complaints. I said this in the video. If he had been a rookie, if he had been some guy who just started 6 months ago or even 3 months ago, I'm not saying that it would have been understandable, but you could say, okay, he didn't know the rules. He was new. He was green. He wasn't. Where was his boss? Where was his captain? No, this guy has years of experience, almost decades of experience, and a number of complaints against him. Why was he not fired? Who is protecting him? Why was he protected? This is the problem. So I think that the bigger issue here is that the media and the powers that be will focus on him alone. Now, of course, he needs to be punished. But what about all the people who facilitated him? People who didn't remove him when complaints were brought against him? What happens to those people? Why aren't they resigning? Why aren't they losing their jobs? Where is the training involved in dealing with suspects? Why isn't that training put in place? Who decided not to implement training? Is this a local problem? Is this a national problem? There needs to be a complete review following this. But of course it will be, this was one bad guy, let's move on and forget about it. In a way, he will be the one who will take the hit. And I don't mean this in any disrespect to what happened, but he will be used as somewhat of a scapegoat for the bigger issue of there aren't any checks and balances in place. There aren't any people going to go down for this. He will be the one who will go down, and it will be swept under the carpet, and we will go back to normal. Give it a week and people will be talking about something else. That's my fear. Fish rots from the head down. Well said, killer.
Discipline for only 2. And dozens were arrested during protests in New York City.
Now, President Trump is threatening to take action to bring the city of Minneapolis under control, calling violent protesters thugs.
Once again, just let's react to what has happened, but not actually think about what the cause was. Why are these people protesting? Do they have a legitimate complaint? No. They're just thugs. Let's just insult them. It makes it easier. We don't have to deal with them.
He tweeted today that when the looting starts, the shooting starts. By the way, that tweet was flagged by Twitter. Live here in the newsroom, Jasmine Veal, I'll send it back to you.
Okay, sorry, the video has frozen for some reason, but it's over now. So let me just go to your comments. Scapegoat, exactly. The system is rotten. This is what I've been talking about before. The system needs to be removed. The political system, the economic system, the social system. A system that allows a police officer to kill someone, and the people who allowed him to do that will walk away, will be completely free from any prosecution or any type of checks or balances even. There won't be any change following this. Politicians need this animal farm with humans. Exactly, Christian. This happens all the time. He will move to a different city and get another job as a cop. The likelihood of this cop will face prison is 0.001%. Cops don't do time in prison time. In April, white protesters with guns stormed state houses. Trump calls them liberators or patriots. Today, protesters are thugs who who protest police brutality. It's the maybe these people should have turned up at the police station with, you know, M16s and AR-15s. Maybe they would have been treated with more respect if they had done that. He fitted the description. Oh, sorry, I lost Glasgow Kisses comment. He fitted the description of someone who paid a dodgy $20 bill, $20 note. He was killed for $20. You know, aren't there more violent people on the streets that you could be considering dealing with? But this is probably a case of bullying. You know, this is someone who can't cause me any harm, so I'm going to punish him. You know, there could be gang leaders or gang members that could actually cause me harm. I'm not going to go and deal with them people. Instead, I'm going to take down this guy who's a nobody, because I can do it, and there will be no consequences for me. Nigel Farage was a punk rocker back then. Oh my God, Nigel Farage. Trump will tweet something crazy and the news cycle will move on quickly. Sir Antonius Block, I agree. Unfortunately, you know, this is going to be in the news for a couple of days, and then we will move on to something else. Donald Trump will make some idiotic statement and the media will go crazy. He will insult some politician or some celebrity, and then we'll be, oh my God, how dare he say this? Or we'll be speculating about war with China or something of that type. So guys, 2 hours and a half on the stream. Unfortunately, we'll have to end it soon. Well, very, 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 very soon. So before we end, I want to end, of course, on a light note. So I want to show you something to liven the mood. So let me see. Why is that not working? So I've been listening to this song all day. Not all day, but recently a lot. Maybe you know it. No, the video is not working.
I compromised, he compromised, and made concessions to give the impression that my deal was new. Con the DUP, sold down the water, that's where I put the border. Any deal will do. I'll crash the pound, I'll slash your rights. The people's vote is out of sight.
If we don't leave on the 31st of October, this country will explode.
Any deal will do.
Any deal, any deal, any deal,
any deal will do.
Any deal, any deal, any deal,
any deal will do.
Any deal.
Okay, so for some reason the hamsters are not working at this late stage. So I want to thank everyone for your comments, for coming on the live stream tonight. It was a huge success. Unfortunately, at the very end, we lost our video and our images. The hamsters have given up on us. Some highs and lows, of course. I do hope that something good will come out of this man's death, and that something will change. But unfortunately, looking at how things have gone so badly over the last number of years in the United States regarding the African American community, and when they suffer at the hands of police, how little is actually done and how little changes, it is quite sad and depressing. So in the UK, the lockdown on Monday is due to ease up a little, so perhaps you'll be able to stretch your legs a bit better, so those of you who are in the UK. So once again, thanks to everyone for coming on the stream tonight. Thanks so much for all of your super chats and your comments and your donations. It's been great. Thank you so much. It was a record tonight. We were up to over 250 viewers, so that was amazing. And thanks for all of your support. Thanks to the moderators for doing a fantastic job. I couldn't do it without you. We got 286. Thank you so much for that, Sir Antonius Block. So I missed that. I saw it at 250. Now you told me 286. So I want to get to 300 next time. That would be fantastic. Thank you so much for all of your for everything you have done. You guys make the stream, not me. I'm just the conduit. So thank you again, and I'll see you all on Tuesday night. Have a good one. Stay safe. Stay alert, as Boris Johnson says, and remember to wash those hands. Take care, guys. See you on Tuesday night.